for everyone for tuning back into So What Wednesday podcast. We've been away for a while and we've been working hard. We haven't been taking a break. And if you've noticed anything on our social media, especially LinkedIn pages, you've seen a lot of information about something we call MANTLE. MANTLE is our automation platform for the edge. And today I'm lucky enough to be joined by Jeremy Martin. Jeremy's been with us for quite a bit, and he's actually, in some respects, the godfather of MANTLE. So instead of me trying to introduce Jeremy to you, I'll let Jeremy introduce himself, and then we'll get kicked off. So Jeremy, take it away, sir.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining us on this wonderful Wednesday. I'm Jeremy Martin. I am the Director of Solutions Engineering here at NexTech Solutions. Prior to this, I was a Marine Corps veteran. Spent 11 years in the DoD serving multiple capacities, mostly in the IT realm. And I ended up joining NexTech back in 2017, focusing on kind of edge automation, edge services, and really supporting our user base. The background where I came from, serving that community. So one of the things that we kind of decided pretty quickly on is there's had to be better ways to do some of these things. So some of the pain points that we experienced when I was in the Marine Corps and other assignments was, hey, how can we get some of these, edge packages, deployment packages, how can we get them out faster? How can we have more consistent, repeatable deployments? And that's where MANTLE really came into light. We started experiencing some internal issues. So as a sales-focused organization, being able to demonstrate products to customers, we need to be able to first understand those products, deploy them on systems that customers are used to, and be able to take it and demonstrate that. Internally, we were having issues. It took us, significant amount of time to be able to get those demo kits out of the door in a customer presentable fashion. So that's where MANTLE really came into existence. Was we needed to understand how we can better create solutions for ourselves that can also help better some of our customers with their same issues. So instead of having demo kits going out, they have actual mission kits, but it all falls along the same line. They have the same issues with failed deployments, misconfigurations, services not configured correctly, missing services. The list can just go on and on and on. But that's a quick 2-minute rundown of me.
Yep.
If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
I think we're very lucky to have you, number one, but number two, because of your background in the tactical world, in that community, I think you have an appreciation for what it actually takes. But also because you lived in that world, you also had developed a set of tools and skills and processes that let you get out to or get to mission faster. And when you saw this idea or thought through this concept of MANTLE, that was the goal, right? Get to mission faster. And I think one of the things I took away from the conversation with you initially about MANTLE was, I remember what you said. You said, look, Benny, they're doing this stuff in the cloud now, right? They do a lot of these automation tasks in the cloud, whatever the big cloud hyperscale guys are. You can set up a server, you can set up a service, you can set up an application in the matter of minutes. But when it comes to our customers, specifically the DoD customers who operate in non-standard places or in places where they don't have the luxury of a data center or access to a hyperscale cloud, they have to set these things up themselves. They don't have that same benefit. So how do we take that knowledge or that skill set or those tools that are in the cloud and take them all the way down to the edge to help that customer? So I remember that conversation vividly with you. And that was almost, 5 years ago that we first started talking about it. So with that, if you don't mind, as you were going through and as you were developing and working on building MANTLE, did any of the original goals, thoughts change? Or did it evolve more as you developed? And expand on that a little bit. And if they did, why? Why did they change?
Yeah, absolutely, Benny. So we had our initial vision of what MANTLE, is, and at that time, it was our NTS Edge Automation Toolkit. And the way that we originally built that was utilizing tool sets that we were comfortable with. So I came from a PowerShell heavy background. So every aspect of automation I looked at was from a PowerShell viewpoint. So The initial scripts for deploying out our hypervisor level, as well as our server management, and additionally some of our network capabilities, as well as services, was all handled through PowerShell.
Hmm.
Um, we come to find out that that isn't the best way to do things. There are more efficient ways. We also did not have any front end development experience. Everything was just a folder of PowerShell scripts. We tried to put together a executable application that would go through and just sequentially run through all of our installation scripts. So it was a very static one-shot deployment. If anything had errors, issues, it would just completely disrupt the whole installation. So we looked at having another company come in. They just didn't have the understanding of the mission set and what we were actually trying to do. So we kind of went back internally and we looked at leveraging some of our own internal skill sets, utilizing some of these programmatic tool sets to be able to create a GUI that anyone, a sales engineer or even a sales guy, can just load a configuration. And based on that configuration, it can go ahead and deploy out whatever was possible. So over time, I want to say it was probably about a 2-year period where we converted everything from PowerShell scripts to Python. And now within the last 3 months, it's a full-blown web application that can either be deployed on hardware or deployed as an OVA into a virtualized environment like a VMware infrastructure to be able to handle these automation capabilities.
So that's interesting, right? It's kind of this this roller coaster of we think we want it a certain way, try it, it doesn't really work well, come back to the drawing board, and then keep trying. So this idea of iteration, I think that's so important, right? Being able to iterate quickly, and then listen to that feedback. The good news is you kind of had that built-in feedback because you lived this for so long on the other side of the table. But if you step back a little bit, walk me through, or if you remember kind of that original brainstorm, like what were the things that when you started writing this down on paper, like, hey, these are the things that we want to make sure we're able to do. This is the outcome that we want. And what were some of the key factors that were important to you in producing this solution?
Yep. So one of the biggest hurdles that we ran into from the get-go that we knew we needed to address was how do we get an OS, a hypervisor, onto bare metal hardware. That was probably the number one goal for us, and we looked at various different methods of how to do this. Some open source, some custom proprietary that we developed, some that were just pretty rough solutions, but they accomplished the goal.
Sure.
And through trial and error, I mean, automation is a journey. It's something you can't just say, this is what I'm going to do today and expect everything to go perfectly throughout the day. It is kind of, you find out 1,000 ways not to do something to find that one way to make something work and make it work to a, satisfactory level.
But isn't that what we're kind of trying to do? If you really think about the true essence of software, is to take those processes, especially in the case of automation, and specifically in the case of edge automation, like as we're building here with Mantle, isn't the whole goal is to take a lot of those lessons learned, that tribal knowledge, if you will, codify it, put into a process that's repeatable, so that you can give it to anyone and say, hey, plug your box into this box, hit go, and you get what you want. And that's really what I think, partially why the cloud has been so successful is they've taken a lot of that tribal knowledge, if you will, the way that things are done. 3 or 4 people know how it is, they write it down. But how do you really make this scalable? And I think what you're talking about is that process. And a lot of organizations, government, non-government, military, non-military, go through that exact process of kind of trial and error over and over again to get to that result. So essentially what you're doing with Mantle is you're bottling all that up, right? And you're putting it in code, and then you're giving that code a name and productizing it. So it's interesting that no matter what the process is, trial and error, learning, walking through the process, getting that iterative feedback is so important, right? It doesn't matter, again, what the product is.
No, absolutely. It's definitely, automation is hard, and not everyone is willing to go the way to correctly implement automation. There's a million different automation tool sets out there.
Right.
None of them are easy to go from the ground up to having nothing to having services, whether it be virtualization, network, and user devices automated. That's the hard part. And that's where some of the beauty comes in with Mantle is we kind of take that hard work out of there. You're able to take a lot of the lessons learned that we have learned over the years, whether through templates or through GUI provided forms that you can quickly fill out to really help adopt some infrastructure as code methodologies and to be able to enable automation for anyone.
So you're basically saying we make automation easy, right?
In a way, it's there's always going to be work with it,
Sure.
but if it is obtainable and if it is the ease of access and the level of effort isn't monumental, I think it's a lot easier to swallow. You don't have to hire a full staff of automation engineers. You don't have to have, you know, dedicate a full shop of subject matter experts. So if you're looking at, let's say, network automation, you don't need 10 CCIEs to sit there to provide the automation experts the workflows of how this needs to be done to accomplish your objective. Same with virtualization. You don't need to have 10 system engineers sitting down with your automation experts to figure out these workflows to be able to produce an end result. Mantle really helps you to kind of bridge that gap of taking no automation, integrating some infrastructure as code, being able to template your infrastructure, your desired end state, and then ingesting that into Mantle, which Mantle then goes out and does the automation for you.
So we give you that day zero effect, right? Day zero, if you have nothing, here's how you get started. Here's how you get your at least the baseline services up and running, and then keep growing from there. Would you?
Absolutely.
So this is again developing something like this, building something like this from the ground up. Building any kind of software tool is never easy. I'm sure there's a lot of different challenges that you ran into. Would you care to share maybe your top one or top two things that you ran into as far as challenges? And I'm sure you have a list of those, right?
There's a full list of challenges when it comes to automation development. One of the biggest ones for us is just programmatic capabilities. So if we look at our engineering staff as a whole, not all of us are well versed in Python. Not all of us are well versed in PowerShell. Those who are generally aren't versed in the mission requirements as well as some of the procedural requirements for networking or systems or virtualization storage. So trying to find a balance and try to create that workflow internally to develop it's been a challenge, and I think it's something that any organization that's going to try to adopt some automation capabilities will kind of run through those same problems because you're taking a new problem set and injecting it into existing staff, which not everyone is going to feel comfortable with it. Some people are going to be automation adverse because they don't want to automate themselves out of a job. And there's also just kind of the translation. So trying to have, if you do have an automation expert or you have a system, trying to translate those requirements over to the programmatic guys or to the network guys. So it's probably been one of the biggest challenges I think internally we face, but like anything, we've been able to work through there and create lessons learned from those
But
adversities.
you know what you said was actually really interesting, Jeremy. So would you say that the journey that you went on in developing this as a product is not that different than when we talk about a customer that we want to go sell Mantle to or provide Mantle to, the journey that they have to go on because they've grown up a certain way. They know they have a ingrained skill set, right? Networking guy, systems person, storage person, and for them to relearn something. So that same process of implementing it and you having to then build it are very similar. So do you feel like when you go sit down with people, that's kind of where you can connect with them to say, look, we know the challenge because we've gone through it.
It goes one of two ways. You can either connect because we've already gone down the journey of being able to go from zero to hero for automation. We also go down the path of, well, if we automate this, what value
Right.
are traditional network and system engineers going to provide anymore? If they can automate their jobs, what's next? Well, from our standpoint, and I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit, is automating the provisioning of software shouldn't be the end state. Automating allows your engineers, whether network or system, to be able to better provide services, because that's ultimately the goal, is to provide those services, not instantiate those services.
So
So
let's dig on that. In fact, yeah, you kind of helped get into the next question for me as far as what is the future of it. So I like the way you said that. The goal as we automate is not just to automate the provisioning of something or something gets created. It's what the outcome or delivery of that service looks like, really providing that service to the end user. So
yeah.
so let's keep pulling the string on that one a little bit. So if that's the goal, right? The goal is to help make that possible with the Mantle platform. Where do you see it going from here?
That's always a question when you're a developer, is kind of, what's next? And for us, if you ask anyone what their edge is, it's always going to be a different answer. So as far as Mantle goes and automation is, it's going to be whatever our customers need that edge to be, and to be able to make it a seamless, repeatable process for them. So whether it's going to be end user devices such as Android phones, or physical network, software defined networking,
Yep.
or even still virtualized infrastructure, I kind of see the future of automation just continuing to create bridges between typical deployments and these new edge deployments.
So really becoming kind of an all-encompassing platform for that day zero work, right? So whether
Right.
your new edge is the new Samsung whatever phone or a tablet or truly a rolling data center, if you will, or if it's a fixed site with a lot of compute and storage, any of those could be the edge, and you need the ability to automate all of those. And then I think you layer into that what's happening on the cellular side, like with 5G specifically, and the idea of these virtually defined cellular networks. That kind of touches on it even more. So, do you think this idea of automating yourself out of a job? I haven't seen that. I've seen, at least in my interaction with customers, as automation progresses, it's like optimizing anything. You find the bottleneck, you optimize it, you move on to the next. You find the bottleneck, you optimize it, and it's this repetitive process, and it kind of keeps going in this circle because the technology changes, where your bottlenecks are in terms of what need to be optimized changes, and then also the outcome changes. All of a sudden you may have more server or more users accessing more data. Um, and now you have to optimize for that. So do you feel like that's kind of how it happens? Is that even though these guys and these people feel like they're going to lose their job if they automate, do you feel that it inevitably goes in a much bigger circular pattern than just kind of a, hey, we're done, we've automated everything, and now everyone can go home?
No, it absolutely does go through that circle. So by automating some of your low-hanging tasks, like infrastructure stand-up, it allows you to spend more time becoming more proficient in services supporting that, as well as being able to become competent and research for future technologies that may be introduced into your enterprise environment. So it frees your valuable resources up to be able to handle some of those high-value taskings, instead of just repetitive processes that can be easily automated. One great example of that, when I was in the military, we would be standing down these network packages instead of actually learning how we can better support the customers once those packages are online. Because that was our mission set. So when we were deployed, we're supporting the customers that were on the network, not supporting the stand up of these kits. So it's one of the beautiful things about Mantle, is it allows you to quickly stand up, whether it be an operational network or a training environment. You can quickly stand up, not having to worry about disrupting any services from that aspect of it, and being able to troubleshoot and train, learn, and then blow it away and be able to stand up a fresh new one. Whether it's training yourself or you're training your team, it just kind of helps enable that.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of kind of crumpling up that piece of paper, throwing it away, being able to start over and over and over again until you get it right or get what you want or get
Yeah.
the result that you need. Do you feel that as you see this progressing, that this idea that more services will be offered at the edge? And let me back up for a second. One of the things you said was let the important people do the important things, or let the smart guys do the smart things. Do you feel that that's why cloud has been successful? Not to keep comparing what we're doing at the edge always to the cloud, but that's one of the beauties of the cloud, right? Is that
Yep.
I don't now necessarily have to be an infrastructure expert or a networking expert. I want to build an application. I want to build a business, right? From the ground up, I want to build a business. I don't have to own a single piece of networking gear or a single server. And I can go to the cloud, I can instantiate what I want, and I'm off to the races. Is that the same level of utility you want to bring down to the edge with Mantle?
Yes, absolutely. So that's one of the beautiful things about the cloud. So as organizations continue to build their enterprise, pushing out services further and further, anyone can do it. You don't need to be an expert to be able to deploy out services in the cloud. And that same methodology should be applied to the edge. So any user should be able to import a template into something like Mantle to be able to deploy out the services that they need for that edge use case. I think typically when we look at what services that our customers have been running at the edge, most of those services tend to be the same. There's not many variances between that, and that's one of the beautiful things about automation is you're able to template most of that. So if you have a 90% solution and you only have to spend 10% of your time to customize that for your specific set, you just saved a whole lot of time to do an overall larger task. So that's kind of where I see, bridging the gap between cloud and edge is that Mantle. Mantle is that bridge. So you're taking cloud, native power, but running it in a fully disconnected environment wherever you need it to be. I think that's kind of one of the things I glanced over pretty quickly at the beginning was just the ability to handle some of these things. So for our customers, we don't know what environment they're going to be working in. They could be working in a fully contested environment where they don't have network connectivity. Everything's going to be localized. So the way that we want to envision automation is everything can be run off of the Mantle appliance or the Mantle virtual machine. So DNS, NTP, file share repositories, everything can be accessed locally. And that way, if anything is severed to the larger enterprise or into the cloud or into public internet, they're able to pick up and resume without any disruption in operations.
Interesting. To kind of bring it all back, and we keep talking about cloud and cloud to edge. But again, that's one of the things that gets glanced over when you talk about cloud is that baseline of automation. That's really what makes it go round, if you will, right? All the other pieces, yes, are very important, but without the automation layer, it's much harder for the average person to go and get value out of the cloud. So I think this idea of taking that same power, as you said, the cloud power, but in disconnected environments where you don't know if you're going to be connected to any kind of networking, you don't know what you're going to have, but you still need to provide services. Being able to flip that switch, press a couple of buttons, if you will, and you now have a working environment. There's a tremendous amount of value in that. So to kind of to wrap it back up and to bring it full circle, one of the questions that I love to ask on this podcast is this idea of so what? And to me, we talk about all this great technology. I'd like to answer that so what question, which is so what? Why does this matter? Why should people care about it? And so I'll turn over to you in your words. So what, Jeremy?
Yeah.
Why do people care about this?
So what? Why should people care about Mantle and automation in general? The automation journey is hard. Just straight up, it is probably one of the hardest transitions any organization can make. Through manpower, understanding their own internal workflow processes, it is extremely hard. Mantle helps alleviate that bridge to go from no automation to fully automated. It enables organizations to do more with less, as well as for not having to account for increasing staff. So, for budgetary purposes, you don't need to go ahead and hire a whole suite of automation SMEs or increase your workforce for network and system engineers to be able to support the automation efforts. And then it allows the organizations to just stop worrying about building edge infrastructure. It should be a minor task in an overall larger mission set and vision. So really, Mantle allows you to just go ahead and simplify those operations so you can focus on maintaining the services instead of having to just build services, which is ultimately the goal for any enterprise level service provider. And then the last kind of So what is the edge is always evolving. How can you keep up with that? You need someone that is forward thinking enough to be able to maintain automation solutions to keep up with that always evolving edge. And that's where the beauty of Mantle lies is it's always there. It is always going through the gauntlet to make sure that it's staying up to date with the latest automation technologies as well as versioning.
No, it's very well said. I think as more people run into the challenges of edge, I think or being able to operate at the edge, we'll see an even greater need for things like Mantle. But even in the short time that it's been on the market, I've heard some great feedback from customers in terms of how quickly they've been able to do things. In fact, I think I heard one customer say what used to take them, up to 2 weeks now takes anywhere from 45 to 50 minutes. I heard another customer say that what would take them 96 plus hours to deploy on their systems now takes, on the average of 45 minutes, give or take. So it's that idea of being able to take that power that's in the cloud and really bring it down for the layman, for anybody to be able to use. So with that, Jeremy, I want to thank you, sir, for joining us, giving us some of your time. For all of you guys who tuned in, tune in with us again next time on another episode of So What Wednesday. We'll cover another topic. We'll always ask the question, so what, so we can help make sure we know why we're doing what we're doing. And with that, appreciate everybody's time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.